Have you ever wondered whether your dog knows you are crying before you say a single word? Most people assume animals live entirely in the present. Eat, sleep, play, repeat. No inner world, no emotional radar, nothing beneath the surface. But at the crossroads of interspecies communication, science and everyday observation, a more intriguing idea has taken hold. What if animals are reading you in real time, in ways you do not even notice yourself? From reflexes to feelings. Let us start with an assumption almost everyone shares. Animals respond to actions, not emotions. A dog comes running when you open a bag of treats. A cat bolts when a door slams. Simple stimulus, simple response. No feelings required. For a long time, that was the default scientific position as well. Recognizing emotions was considered an exclusively human skill, built on language, subtle facial expressions, and years of social learning. Surely a golden retriever cannot tell the difference between a heavy sigh and sobbing. But then researchers decided to test it directly. The results were strange enough to make people rethink what they thought they knew. In 2012, the journal Animal Cognition published a study that put dogs through a deceptively simple test. Owners were asked to hum, speak in a normal voice, or cry in front of their pets. No commands, no treats, no hints of any kind. Here is the part that surprised even the researchers. When their owners cried, the dogs approached them more quickly. They nudged them with their noses, licked them, and pressed against their legs. Some even adopted submissive postures, as though responding to distress rather than idle curiosity. That is not the reaction you would expect from an animal simply running toward a familiar sound. It is not just attachment. Later studies went further. In one experiment, both owners and strangers pretended to cry in front of dogs. The dogs did not comfort only their own people. Many approached crying strangers too, showing the same quiet, gentle attention. That detail matters enormously. If dogs were responding only out of attachment, they would have ignored strangers entirely. Instead, the sound and posture of sadness seemed to trigger concern, regardless of who was crying. So what is really happening inside that furry head? Scientists point to a concept called emotional contagion. It is considered one of the earliest and simplest forms of empathy in the animal world. A distress signal from one individual, whether crying, whimpering, or a change in body tension, is passed to another nearby. That does not necessarily mean animals understand sadness the way a human therapist does. It is closer to one nervous system syncing with another. Stress hormone levels change. Heart rate may change. The body reacts before any conscious thought has time to form. Researchers describe this as a building block of empathy, not human-level empathy itself. Dogs may not know why you are sad, but something in their biology tells them that you are not okay and that it matters. Horses and rats, the radar is everywhere. This is where the story gets even more interesting, because dogs are far from alone. Consider horses. In a 2016 study, horses were shown photographs of angry and happy human faces. No sounds, no owners, no context, just images. Heart response: when they looked at angry faces, the horses' heart rates rose significantly. Behavioral response: their behavior around the researchers changed as well. They became more cautious and alert. A prey animal, shaped by millions of years of evolution to detect danger instantly, turned out to be finely tuned to tension in a human face. And this was not a household pet responding to a beloved owner. It was pure perceptual sensitivity to emotional cues, deeply wired into survival instincts. Now compare that with something smaller and perhaps even more surprising: rats. In laboratory studies, rats show behavior scientists call consolation. When one rat is stressed, another rat nearby, previously completely calm, will often approach and groom it more intensely than usual. No one taught them to do this. They are not rewarded with food. It appears spontaneously, almost like an automatic social reflex triggered by another creature's distress. The evolutionary roots of compassion. Three very different animals. a domestic companion, a prey species shaped by survival pressures, and a small rodent often dismissed as a primitive, reactive creature. Yet all three show behavioral evidence pointing to the same hidden thread. One being's stress can ripple outward and change another's behavior. And here is the turn that makes this subject deeply personal, not merely academic. If stress can pass so easily between species, what does that say about us? Human infants show emotional contagion from their very first day of life. Newborns cry more intensely when they hear another baby crying than when they hear ordinary noise at the same volume. Before language, before understanding, before memory is fully formed, humans already carry this wiring within them. In other words, the same basic mechanism dogs use to detect your sadness may be part of the very foundation on which human empathy was built. We often picture empathy as a complex, uniquely human achievement, enriched by philosophy, morality, and self-awareness. But researchers in comparative psychology suggest something more humbling and more sobering. Its roots may be far older, much simpler, and far more widespread throughout the animal world than we once believed. That changes the question entirely. It is not simply whether animals understand human sadness. The question is whether human empathy itself was built from something animals already had, between reflex and awareness. Of course, caution matters here. Scientists are careful to separate observed behavior from a complete interpretation of it. A dog approaching a crying person does not prove it understands sadness as a concept in the way an adult human does. It does not prove the dog knows why you are upset, what caused it, or how long it will last. What the evidence points to is more modest, but still remarkable. Animals can pick up emotional signals, and in many cases respond to them behaviorally, even without language and without a full cognitive understanding of the emotion itself. That distinction matters. Recognizing stress is not the same as grasping grief, disappointment, or heartbreak in their full human complexity, but consistently detecting another being's distress and responding by moving closer or offering comfort is still a meaningful form of social intelligence. It is a spectrum, not an on-off switch. Full understanding lies at one end, pure reflex at the other. Most current evidence places animal responses in a surprising middle ground, an ancient connection. Let us return to something familiar. Picture a quiet apartment. Someone sits alone, overwhelmed by problems, and after a long, difficult day, the tears finally come. Across the room, a dog lifts its head. It does not understand rent, deadlines, heartbreak, or grief in the human sense. But it hears something in the voice. It notices something in the posture. It gets up and comes over anyway. Maybe it is simply biology. Maybe it is an ancient survival mechanism repurposed for comfort. Or maybe it is something we have not fully mapped yet. But one thing is certain. Across species that appear to have little in common, sadness is rarely left completely unnoticed. So the next time it feels as though an animal senses your mood before you say a word, consider this. Perhaps it is not magic and not complete understanding. Perhaps it is simply one of nature's oldest forms of connection, quietly doing what it has always done.